Awesome. So again, thank you so much for chatting with me. I know everyone's busy, so I am respectful of people's times, and especially on a Friday afternoon, I wouldn't take too much of your time. So I took a look at your info so far, and you're an engineer, and you design and put together the buildings. I would assume the structures for which cannabis is cultivated. So can we start there and just give me a little bit about your background and what it is you do?
All right. Yeah, I come from the industry itself. I was actually a glass blower back in the day. I started the first all glass pipe shop in the world and worked with Jack Herrera and Tommy Chong and graphics and a lot of big companies, and went on and did some engineering for glass. After that, after Operation Pipe Dreams came through and shut a lot of us down, which was a national thing that the government did to try to shut down a lot of us pipe makers and everything back in the 90s, early
Mhm.
2000s. So I got out of it and started doing glass for architectural projects. And then after that, when Amendment 64 was coming to Colorado, I was looking into what needed to be done, what I could do in the industry that I've been in for 20 plus years. And I started a place called Greenhouse Rentals where people could come in and rent their own grow space on my facility. And I engineered and designed all that and went through all the pitfalls and everything that the cannabis industry now experiences. So then I had kind of a long fight with the city council over some caretaker bills that shut that down. So I joined American Cannabis Company and took the role of design and build manager there. And that's where I really perfected my craft on cannabis engineering. And that's what I call it. And that's what I speak around the world about is cannabis engineering. And what we do is we bridge the gap between the industry and the build teams, like the architects, the engineers, and everything. Because you could be the best architect in the country in Arkansas, like when their program started, but you do not know how the actual industry works. You don't know the return rates and the workflow and what rooms are needed and all that. So I taught myself CAD, AutoCAD, and
Mhm.
then started being that resource. I would work in between the architects and the industry to show them the layouts of how we need the facility to work. And then that just started taking off, and I've designed and created more over 4 million square feet now. I've worked with very big customers, some of the biggest in the industry. Worked with universities, and I've just been really getting the importance out of what a cannabis engineer can do to really help the industry and get the facilities done right in the beginning. Because a lot of people don't understand that your facility is the face of your company. It's what everybody sees. It's what the investors come into. It's what the public sees. It's what everybody is. It's the front of your business. So a lot of people overlook that. They bring in the consultants and they start doing all their license applications, and they just put off the design of the facility until the end, and then they're in a scramble to try to get this up and going, and they just don't put it together right. Workflow is just through the roof. People travel too far to do stuff, this, that. There isn't all the proper rooms
Okay.
in
And
the
so
facility.
I'm very interested and very intrigued by what you're saying
I'm
because,
losing you. You're kind of breaking up.
oh, sorry about that. Is that any better? So yes, as I was mentioning, with regards to what you were mentioning earlier, that's really an interest of focus that I'd like to explore a little bit. And the reason being is I've spoken to a number of operators or small operators that, or people that are entrepreneurs that are looking to get into the industry, and they want to go ahead and get their license and get their facilities set up. And having, worked with a number of folks to go through that process. I know it's not as easy as I guess some people are thinking when they think of cannabis. They're seeing dollar signs, and there's a lot that actually goes into it to make it successful. So when you talk about um, understanding, the number of rooms and the grow and the wasted, I guess, elements within cultivation and harvest. And can you walk me through what you would consider to be an ideal setup for this industry, whether it's a small operation, maybe 5,000 square feet, or even some of the bigger players that have, 500,000 square feet?
Yeah, that's no problem. I've done both. Well, my main setup and what I start from is I use GMP and ISO practices. I'm really trying to push the industry to be more like laboratories, pharmaceutical grade. I mean, because we are talking about medicine. So I make sure my builds start with a very high IPM, which is, integrated pest management. So my job is
Okay.
to
So go back and just, sorry, go back and elaborate for us, for our audience that would not be necessarily familiar with GMP and ISO.
that's good the practices of how the facilities ran in ISO is like standardization. So
Hmm.
it's just getting it. So I use air showers. I have like secure vestibules and air locks and changing rooms and just everything designed in to keep, which IPM is integrated pest management. It's just trying to keep the pest and the pathogens, the molds, everything out on an engineering level. So beyond just the consciousness of the growers to try to keep these bugs and everything out that we're trying to keep out, I do that from the engineering level. So I really make sure things got the pressurized hallways and different things just to try to keep contaminants out. So I use, like I said, changing rooms and air showers, just like what they use in the medical world,
Hmm.
pharmaceutical, and it's just really trying to get a nice, clean, reliable medicine to be produced out of these facilities instead of the old school outlaw basement growing, closet growing mentality that most of these we'll call them master growers. I usually don't use the term. But what they bring to the table, because they might know how to grow good and do all that, but it's a whole different animal when you get into a big commercial setting. It's not no longer 100 plants in our basement like people were used to back in the outlaw days. So we've just really been learning where the workflow needs to be, what needs to just kind of slim the down what's going on in the industry, because the prices are falling. Prices are falling a lot. We've seen Colorado cut in half for our wholesale.
And why
Uh,
is that?
oh, just because more of it's getting produced, and just the stigma around it dropping, and it's just getting more available. So and not all of it is A plus. I mean, everybody was growing just how they're used to growing. If they had things that wasted energy, time, they didn't care because they made money on it, that it was always a cash cow. And now that it's becoming more a commodity, it's going to become where the people who are doing lean practices and just build from the beginning will be the ones that survive. I do a lot of talks about mergers and acquisitions, and that's kind of what the end game is now in
Hmm.
cannabis.
Hmm.
It's no longer the mom and pa grows that can make $2,000 a pound and have all the money they need. It's really coming to those lean practices, and having a good facility in the beginning is how you're going to get these mergers come your way. The big guys, I mean, we already see the beverage companies jumping in. We see the tobacco companies are coming in, and the pharmaceutical, they're all coming in, and they're all sitting on the sidelines. They're salivating. They know how to do these lean practices, and they're going to come in and they'll take over the industry. So it's very good to have your facility set up to what they would want. So they're going to come into the industry and say, you know what, we don't need to build it. It's already built here, and that's where you can either. I always say there's four options. You can either be the big player, join the big player, work it the whole rest of your life like a mom and pop store where you pretty much work there till you die, or go out of business. So I see as my clients always want that first two. We want to be the big player, or we want to join the big player. So starting from your facility is where you need, because like I said earlier, that's your front. That's what everybody sees. So having these good practices in there from the beginning, even though in America here we don't have anybody regulating us. So it's technically the Wild West right now.
Mm.
We don't have anything set for pesticides. We have local jurisdictions trying to marshal it and keep up with it, but it's the industry itself has done some bad things. I mean, they've come up with things to hide the pesticides. So they can use the pesticides and then use a cover on it, and it passed tests, and it's just kind of the Wild West. So knowing that the big players are going to come in, we're just going to be ready for them. We want to be clean and just show that we can produce the product at the level that they're looking for.
And so far, you've had good success with that. Now, the company that you joined, are you part of the management team, the ownership of that, or are you just working alongside with that leadership team to guide them with regards to best practices?
Yeah, American Cannabis Company is a separate company. I'm actually the indoor farmer. I'm do all their cannabis engineering there, and I do work with other clients around the world.
Mhm.
I just got done doing a grow in Australia. So
Okay. When you're doing a grow, let's say for a foreign company or foreign entity, how are you setting it up, or what's your role? What do they engage your services for?
I got all different levels. My main, what I usually do is I come in and do a needs assessment for the company. So I usually meet them on the property. I help them with their whiteboard meetings. I help them find a facility that will work well for them, because retrofits are very difficult. They're more challenging than build to suit. So a lot of these companies, they'll go buy a building and say, okay, we have a building to grow a lot of cannabis in, and they don't realize that it might have asbestos. It might have some other litigations and stuff that we're going to have to get in there and correct. So
Mhm.
I'll come from the beginning to help them in their choice, is what I prefer to do. And then I will go in there and I will measure everything. I fly my drone over it. I take photos up there. I come back and take all my measurements, and I put it into CAD,
Mhm.
AutoCAD, and then I work with their layouts to get the best layout, and my knowledge is to help them to produce the best and cost efficient way to grow their cannabis and to be as clean as it can. So then I'll draw all that up, design that, I'll pass that back and forth, and then I'll work with their local architect to get it all cleared and stamped and ready to go. And then some jobs I'll come in and actually work with the build teams and make sure everything gets done right, and all the way to when the first plant gets put into the ground.
Okay.
So I have a little mix of everything. Sometimes I'll just supply the plans for projects, and sometimes I'll be on site till the job's done.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's I saw it as a definite need in the industry, and there's more of me starting to pop up, which is great because I want to see the industry go in the right direction. Just I've been in so many grows and things I go to that are just I don't understand how it even got started in the first place. I don't. A lot of times it's the grower themselves. They just draw on a napkin or trace on a piece of paper what they think the grow should look like. They hand it to an architect who doesn't know anything about the industry, and then they put this building together that's just not 100%.
Yeah, and then it becomes more expensive to correct it after, right?
Yeah, in the long term, fixing problems and not being right in the first place will cost you in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of my builds, they are high priced. I mean, because to be in GMP and ISO rated situations, it costs more in the beginning. So your ROI takes a little bit longer, but you are not correcting those mistakes,
Hmm.
and you have great safe product from the beginning.
And are you doing this as well for a number of, what's the breakdown of your clientele? Is it more of the smaller operators that you work with, or are you servicing just, the big players in the industry mostly?
Oh, I do a little bit of both. I've done all the way up to 200,000. I've been in 800,000 square foot grows. We've done a lot of big grows, but we do service the little guys too. We don't discriminate. If I have the time and the resources, I'll definitely take them on. And I'm working on getting some apprentices now too, so I can have some take on some of the smaller guys, so we can make sure we keep servicing them as well. So I try not to discriminate, but I do go after most of the big guys myself.
Okay. And I'm sure someone, reading this article or listening to or conversation with regards to setting up and making sure that their operation is fully functional and ready to give them a good return on their investment, would be asking themselves, well, what's that going to all cost me? So give us a general idea as to what kind of costs are involved with your services.
My services themselves, oh,
Hmm.
they're moderate. I mean, a lot of consulting companies. I mean, back in the early days, they were charging $50,000 to $100,000 for what I do, and it was just working with architects and are coming to me and paying me. But those prices have really been going down. In the industry now, you usually see anywhere from about 5,000 to 10,000 for full plans, designs, whatnot to get it up and going and put them in line to win their licenses. That's one thing people overlook too, is that when they're applying for a license, the they're looking at everything. They're not just looking at their practices and what they're going to do. They're also looking at the way their facility set up and how serious they took this from the beginning to win their license. So to have a very good drawn out plan, I mean, it's worth that $5,000 or $10,000 to pay somebody to make sure you're going to get one of those licenses, have a better chance.
Hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of people are just drawing on graph paper and just, oh, this is what it's going to look like. But the bureaucrats and everybody who's running the licensing, they're looking at that. And, they see that you have good practices going on and you're trying to protect that facility from divergence, uh, pesticides, bugs, everything from the very beginning. They know that you're taking it serious. So a lot of people will turn down that. Oh, I don't want to pay an extra $5,000 or $10,000 on something I can draw on a piece of paper, but they don't realize the importance it is for their license applications and just how that facility works.
Exactly. And so I would draw then from that that you have worked, most of the folks that you've worked with have been successful with getting their licenses to be approved.
Yeah, we've done really well. We've won quite a bit of licenses, even when there was limited number. When there was, 6 licenses, we've won one. I mean, we've done pretty well.
And so is Colorado now, oh, that's where you are, is in Colorado. Is your state now fully open for people that are still looking to get licenses to operate in Colorado?
Yeah, we were, Colorado used to have a residence requirement where you
Hmm.
used to have to be a resident of Colorado for certain time to be able to apply. We just dropped that. So now we have some openings, and we do have our licenses are all sold out in a lot of like Denver and stuff like that, and they've been holding off issuing more. So it's made the licenses are out there, but a license that normally costs $8,000, people are getting anywhere from 100,000 to 250,000 for them.
Hmm.
So it's I wouldn't say it's the most open market, but there is still opportunities here.
Okay, but you don't think that your state is, saturated at this?
Oh, we're close. We're pretty close. We're not we haven't ran our prices down, like Oregon has or anything. I mean, Colorado's done pretty well on their program here.
Hmm.
So it's still people still have an opportunity here to make some money and stay relevant in the industry, but it is still a very hard field. It's definitely it'd be a fight in Colorado compared to some of these new states that are coming on.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more opportunity there to jump in and just do it right from the beginning and use that leadway of more money in the beginning to stack your resources and just get the money together to continue competing. Where in Colorado, you have to already come in and be ready to compete because we got a lot of good players here that really know what they're doing, and it's
Okay.
it's a very competitive market.
Right. If you could think of, let's say, for example, if you could snap your finger and be able to change one thing or have one thing in the industry that would make it exceptional, what would that be?
The FDA have, having the federal government kind of help out and give us some paths and rules of what we should really be doing with pesticide use and how our products should be for the market. So I'd like to see it go more like pharmaceutical and medical, like what you see what Bayer's doing, and Tylenol, just because we are producing medicine and we really need to make sure our industry stays that way. And we have a lot of strains, for the children and different things that some people are faking them. They're it's not the right product and it's not nobody oversees it. So it'd be great to see an organization that really oversees, put we can put tags in the DNA of plants to know that it's that plant. I'd like to see some oversight to know that that is the correct medicine. I just don't want to see somebody get the wrong medicine that really scars our reputation in the industry. If somebody has more seizures after they got the product they thought was going to help them because it's the wrong product. And it's just so hard to have any kind of organization that's overseeing this. And there is people out there that are working on it, and I applaud them. They're really trying to get the testing up there and do that just to really help how our industry looks in the whole.
Mhm.
Because we don't. A lot of people stick with their outlaw ways. We were considered criminals for 50 years, and some people just stay in that mentality. It's very hard for them to get away from their criminal ways. So we just need to really button down and get. I'd love to see somebody who just oversees the whole industry to make sure it is done correctly and that we don't endanger anybody.
Elaborate on that for me, because as I hear you speak, my understanding, and of course I could be very well wrong, is if someone, let's say, has epilepsy and they're using the product to help them with that. Well, I guess on the epilepsy side, it's more of an oil, but let's take any complication or any medical um, issue that someone would have, and they're taking cannabis or an extract from cannabis to help them alleviate their pain or or to help them with a particular ailment that they have. You're saying that there's certain strains that may or may not be good for that, but at the same time, there is that overarching um, sense that when you're listening to people in the industry speak, they speak as though cannabis, is of some benefit for any and everything. Kind of help me understand that, because I'm getting, when I hear you say that, I'm myself, I'm a little confused. If I'm taking something, how do I know, or how does it um, how do you determine what strain works for what, or has that already been set so that people like myself that are not familiar with that, would have to rely obviously on a doctor or some medical practitioner to say, okay, you need this to be prescribed something directly from that. But in cases where, or in places where it is legalized, so you can legally, go buy whatever you want. Um, how do you determine what to take for whatever your particular ailment is?
Well, luckily we have a lot of smart people out there, the chemists and all that, which I am not. I work with them, but they're the ones that are finding all the cannabinoids and everything in the plant that helps different ailments and everything, and they're doing a great job. And there are most of them are reputable companies pushing that. There just is sometimes where the strain itself might have got lost. Somebody called it the wrong thing down the line or something like that, and somebody is just selling it as that product and they don't have that actual product. So all the big guys, they're doing it right. They're testing. Some of them even now have in-house testing labs to make
Mhm.
sure their product is correct. And that's the good thing, and that's having them doing that is the start. But I'm just talking about the little guys and some people that might just that don't have the resources for in-house testing, and they have to use third-party testing that they just can't really afford, or something like that. So it makes it so it's a difficult for the little guy to really guarantee what they have.
Okay, now I
So,
understand.
so, so all the people that make claims, the Palmer brothers and all that, their product is real. It's tested, and and they make sure it's the right product because it's their reputation on the line. If
Mhm.
they send something out there wrong, it's just we don't know down the line of what could have happened to the strain. I mean, somebody that works there could have put the wrong tag on it at one time. It might something might have just happened deep down that just kind of changed, and they think that it's that strain, but it is not. And
Mhm.
that's one thing I talk about is in Amsterdam, there's the tulip farms and everybody that they use DNA and they put a marker in there, and that's what the industry is starting to go to too. We want to mark the DNA. We want the science guys and the smart guys and the nerds, whatever you want to call them, they to come in there and be able to prove what it is, and just make sure we have little bit of regulation on it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not the geneticist or anything like that, but so most products out there, you can believe them and trust them and go with it. But it'd just be great to see a federal entity just making sure we stick to those guidelines.
Okay, that is wonderful. And thank you again so much for your time.